And so men had evolved to their current state, and partook themselves under ownership of the land. They made use of their legs, and ventured to every corner of the earth. It was so foretold in this era, by the west of the Sahara resided a land of fertility and of temperate weather. Famine was rare here, for the earth was surrounded by volcanic dust and brought forth very enriched fruits. Animals were abundant, and today are fortunate to still exist from this vast continent of paradise. The remnants of this land still exist off the Azores and of the Canary Islands, all the way to the southeast on Cape Verde. Tools were of basic quality, and so were the habitations of the people thereof. They lived off the land itself, and saw no need for civilization or kingship, for these were foreign ideas brought to them from another world. It was at this time when the godlike beings descended down from the heavens, and partook of this fertile land, for having ventured across the entire earth, decided this land to be of the best stock. With this abundant paradise, they built themselves monuments of metal, gold, silver, copper, and iron, for they had prior knowledge of how to manifest such things. With this, they cultivated farmland, and enjoyed the fruits of a foreign habitat. The people who had already lived there were unaccustomed to witnessing such things. The godlike beings did not care for them, for men were regarded as animals. There was one day, Adam, of the tribe of gods, ventured out of his citadel to explore the outer regions. Altogether, the gods of this generation made up to 97. Adam was younger, most curious, and loved the ways of the world. Ra, who was leader of them all, was most pragmatic and respected the ways of the natural world. The others who lived here were not known, for the rest are not relevant to what occurred. The gods did not age, nor did they have the capacity to evolve. In procreation, they seldom did so, to avoid the plague of overpopulating their cities. Where they came from, it is unknown. They were tall in body, without any hair. Their eyes shone vibrant hues of blue, and had craniums that were large and oval in shape. Their skin was the color of white gold, which sparkled majestically in the sunlight. Their fingers were elongated and dripped down like stalagmites. They had no genitals, not to which we could comprehend, for they transmitted their seed through other means beyond the scope of what is physical. They had no biological gender to speak of, for they had no need for breasts or phalluses, but were like men in their structure. The gods conducted to themselves, and created many wondrous things from this earth. Adam grew curious towards the makings of man. Upon returning to his city, he expressed his wonder at how men were conducting themselves towards the leader, who was named Ra. These creatures are not like the rest. They stand on their hind legs and converse in their own languages. Ra, who was leader, expressed skepticism. I have seen bears and meerkats on their hind legs, and birds that speak in their languages as well. What makes these men so much more to marvel at? They utilize tools of their makings. I have seen them carve out arrows and spears. They build homes for themselves out of trees and mud. They also possess physical bodies very much like us, with 5 fingers, dexterous and longer than the other animals. They also clothe themselves and cover their reproductive organs, of which no other animal does. All creatures are subject to this design, for this is the working of God and the natural law of how creatures evolve. I have seen beavers and birds as well construct their own homes out of twigs and mud. As for clothing, what benefit does that provide? We are not clothed, so for them to be clothed does not harbor any sort of superiority. I am not impressed by these findings. Have we not explored the entire earth then, Ra? Have we not seen these creatures in every corner of the earth? Surely they have potential and curiosity that is different from the others. I say we should meet with them and potentially make connection. I reject your counsel, Adam, for we know nothing of these creatures save the repercussions of such an event as you have mentioned. They appear to be creatures of war and constantly fight each other over borders and territory. They are no different from any of the other animals here. At this, Adam withdrew himself, for he could not subject his will before that who was of higher authority. Yet, as days went by, he was still compelled to learn of these creatures, for he knew that they held differences the other animals did not possess. In this manner, he ventured out in the night, against the wishes of Ra, and permitted himself to observe these creatures of man. He witnessed them dance around a fire, and roasting a carcass of another animal on the flame. At this he was entranced, for surely no other animal has conjured up fire. He returned at dawn, and earnestly went to Ra and told him of his findings. At this, Ra was finally intrigued. So it appears they possess more potential than I originally assumed, but what of it? If we are to engage with them, they are surely to grow envious of our existence and wage war, of which we will have no choice but to utterly obliterate them. I still say it is wiser to avoid connection and avoid any needless death. Adam, once more dejected, returned to his quarters. Yet he still possessed an innate curiosity of these beings, and so returned to them in the night. This time, however, he ventured off to another territory, foreign to the first one he had witnessed, for these gods could travel distances in very short amounts of time and had the power of flight. These men he visited lived in caves, yet still possessed the fire of which only beings with sentience were capable of creating. At his observance, he witnessed drawings on the cavern walls. They were animals being hunted down by men, providing stories and lore. Surely these were the makings of creative beings, not just creatures of bloodshed and war. And so once more, Adam returned to Ra to give his account of the findings from the night before. "You insolent fool, has the grass turned your head green? Sure, they are makers of art, but this does not mean the slightest that we should interact with them, for they are still bringers of war. What could be gained by engaging in their world? We have no purpose to interact with them further. It is better we keep to our ways and keep ourselves separate, lest we tarnish ourselves to their kind. Perhaps we can aid in their evolution. These beings are different than we are, for they are capable of change, and we are static. If we are to procreate with them, perhaps we can be creators of a new divine species. I will not hear of such an abomination. The thought of even potentially creating such a being could be disastrous and bring calamity to this world. What gives you right to impose your will onto the makings of this land? It is unwise for creators of our kind to tamper with the makings of the natural world. Yet isn't that why we came here? To create something in this world? We utilize this world for our enjoyment thereof. We do not change the course of its destiny by tampering with its creatures. Surely you should understand your limits, Adam. Yet think of what is possible, Ra. We can make them like us. Surely that is a greater blessing than what befalls them currently. They live in squander, meager terms. They don't even know how to farm their own crops. Do not take the natural world lightly, Adam. There are chains of events that are sensitive to our presence. To meddle in it is abominable. There is no further discussion of it. Now keep away from those beings." At this, the decision was final, and Adam was not to encounter these creatures any longer. It was, however, over the next several days that he was granted visions of desires towards seeing his potential creations that could come forth. For they were accustomed to the ways of other realms, and so there was so much possibility to create where the land was. It was the conditions of this world that drove Adam to grow increasingly obsessive over his wishes. He brought this revelation to Ra, to which once more was denied, and Ra was adamant in his decisions, yet Adam persisted even further. "What gives you right, Ra, to hold authority over what occurs in this land? We are no different, so surely what either of us considers of opinion to be of no difference. We are the most powerful beings and are capable of completely changing this world to our desires. Yet you cling to this idea of preserving the land as it is, that somehow our existence here should be invisible. Are we not here for a reason? That possibly it is the natural ways of things for us to accelerate the evolution of these suffering creatures who are capable of so much more than they are currently. It is something to which we should celebrate in our ability, for we cannot do this with the other animals. Adam, you are insufferable with this desire to impose your will upon the land. Are you not a being of our caste? Do you not follow the laws of what is created? For us to be here is a privilege. To impose upon it is a disrespect to the heavenly realm. We do not have right to control its purpose. Yes, these creatures of man are quite advanced and so much capable than the vast bugs across the entire surface of this world, yet it does not mean it is of necessity to include our involvement with them. Do you not see, Ra? Are you this blind? For we are creators like the Exalted One. We create what is possible, and our ability should be used to its fullest potential. For what is our will but the will of God? Are we not in their image? Are we not the same as this greatness to which is the embodiment of all life? Are we not granted immortal life for this purpose? We can travel the realms freely, and we are free to do as we wish. What is the place in the vast essence of all things? This is a meager dot in a vast sea of dust and fire. Whatever we accomplish here has infinite possibilities. I say this because it is what I understand as the truth, that we are not to meddle in the affairs of evolution in the natural world. We may come here and enjoy the physical reality of things, yet that is the extent of our experience. To meddle in this world is to become intertwined in this world, and to become ensnared. For there are others who have fallen into realms where they should not have tampered with, and they are lost now. That is the law of things. And who writes these laws? This Exalted One. You speak of this as if it's another being just like us. Who are they then to tell us how to conduct to ourselves? Who are they to write the laws? I say, it is better to write our own laws, for it is our life here that is to be lived, and our freedom to do so. We are the creators, and so should be the ones to create our own world. And so, I am of my own volition, to my own choosing to create, for I am a god of my making. I do not decay, nor rot, nor change into other forms. I am eternal, and so forth. I am God. You speak in a dangerous manner. I warn you, lest you tamper with God, that it will soon be of your own demise. And your wisdom, where does it originate from? What have you that is so much greater than I? You are a coward, my friend, for you restrain your absolute potential of being. You squander your own spirit in favor of these laws that crush you into a slave. You are the slave, Adam, for you are a slave to your own desires, and it shall be your own demise in the end. I discount your theory, for there is no one here to stop me, and no laws here that I cannot bend to my own will. I am a creator, and what I create will be. Rest, Adam. Take caution in your words and reconfigure yourself. I implore you. At this, Adam gave up his debate, collected himself, and in defeat acknowledged the truth of Ra. I listen to you because of your wisdom and higher caste, so I will not abide by my desires and will not tamper with the humans. At this, he returned to his bedchamber, yet his desires burned evermore. It was one day Adam wandered the wilderness on his own accord and stumbled upon a tribe of humans who caught his sight and were most afraid. It was then instinctively that Adam reverted course and returned back to the city in fear, lest he should uncover the god's presence. The humans, after collecting themselves, were enchanted and wished to possess much more from these beings, and were absolutely adored and in lust towards their physical bodies. They shared beliefs and stories amongst the tribes, and so created stories of the gods until the women became unsatisfied with their men, longing to breed from those who were much more evolved. There were 3 women who made pilgrimage to discover where Adam might have ventured, for they only managed to see the direction he traveled, yet had no clue to where he might reside. It was also at this time that Adam grew restless and ventured out of his city once more. Upon his ventures, he approached a forest that possessed a spring and waterfall to which he immersed himself into the waters. It was also at this time the 3 women happened to be there as well, and caught witness of the god bathing and were overcome by lust. Caught by surprise and jarred by the intrusion of the women, Adam attempted to depart from the pond and go about his way, lest he should break his oath towards Ra. Yet the women persisted, and upon touching his skin, Adam found his heart connected to their ways, and found himself compelled to remain. Blind by his own purity, he let himself become consumed in their willingness to connect, and found himself in lust towards these women, and proceeded to mate with them through the means of which these godlike beings were only capable of. The women who were now conceived with Adam's seed returned back to their villages. Having come back to his senses, Adam returned to his city in shame. Unable to hold back his grievous sin, he declared it openly to the rest of his kind, for these beings were incapable of lying, to which Ra, unable to respond in anger, foretold his curse. Because you have transgressed against the will of God, you must go back and find these women and kill them, lest they continue their offspring and breed this abominable species. Now Adam, having come into direct contact with the women, was in love to their ways and rejected his counsel, for he had grown to love them as himself and chose to be self-willed and commit against the will of God. Ra commanded Adam to declare the location of these women, as he should be the one to destroy them, to which Adam could not disclose. This cannot be done, Ra, for I am bound to their ways and find myself in absolute love of them. For I am a creator in this world, and the world has become mine to create. No longer are they bound by the forces of law or nature, for they shall be under my command, and I will create that which is perfect, to which the foundations of nature could never reach. As of this day, I am the Lord of this land, and there is nothing within it that cannot be changed by my will. For my will is absolute and all-powerful, and now having become tethered to this world, I will abide by it with a full heart, so that all will follow me under my dominion. This is my love, Ra, for it is this world that I have adopted as my own, and no longer wish to be enslaved by a conduct of being separate from it. No, I am this world now, and this world is mine. It is with a hardened heart you permit yourself to be transfixed by your own desires. I have no choice but to destroy you and destroy that which you have created, for no good may come of it as it transgresses our ways of being. You are blind by your own loyalty, Ra, for I am free and you are the slave. I am the master and you are the servant. Do not think you have the power to stop me, for I am the world. By virtue of law, the two chose to fight for their sovereign will, and a long battle ensued, for the ways of these beings were beyond sheer physical might, and so fought with the power of their spirit and energy. Adam's love, however, outweighed the power of Ra, and so forth destroyed him before the rest of the gods. They marveled in his power, as they did not know of existence in the context of death, as mortals do. In a state of brevity, Adam proclaimed to the rest of his kind, "You must all leave now, and never to return, for I must bear the transgression of my actions. Although it may be righteous of me to prevent the creation of this offspring, these women I have learned to love, and cannot let myself be subject to their demise, even if be against the will of God. I must make them all my slaves and completely subject them to my will, lest they become too powerful for themselves and ultimately become destroyed. For I will raise them as my children and raise them under perfection. They will be creatures of great power, and under my command will they give themselves a perfect world to live in, and shall live no longer in survival and suffering. As of this day, this world belongs to me and will become like heaven." So the rest of the gods took part and brought their city to ruin. They returned to where they came from, of which is not disclosed as it pertains to different dimensions in time. Adam, then alone, returned to the village where the three women he gave seed to lived in. As being of superiority, they all prostrated themselves towards him as a god, and worshipped him for blessings and more knowledge. Now, Adam, becoming engulfed in the notion of worship, enslaved the dwellers of the small village to his bidding, and provided knowledge of civilization, and threatened any who defy him with instant death. Of his offspring became many multitudes, of which were named the Nephilim, for they were titans compared to the humans. Mortals though they were, lived long and vital lives, for only Adam, being of an immortal, lived eternally, so long he wasn't destroyed. The Nephilim were described as exuding golden skin, with elongated limbs and dark blue hair on their scalps, and the rest of their bodies were hairless. They were of superior intellect and strength compared to the humans, and so naturally developed a hierarchy system of genetic disposition. It was throughout many generations did the hierarchy of the Nephilim pronounce itself, for while Adam remained god of worship, there remained underneath him several classes in regard to the Nephilim order. In so forth, it became accustomed to treat lower humans as slaves and undesirable to breed with, lest it tarnish the race of godliness. And so many were also of the half-breeds, and mingled amongst the humans and the gods, and were treated with contempt by both parties, and often left this civilization to die alone in the wilderness. There was known to be a sect of them to which left the land in search of new habitat, and came upon the northern islands known today as Ireland and Britain, to which they called themselves the fairies. It was over several generations that Adam built a perfect world for his children, and through the use of their exalted knowledge of all matter and energy, constructed an automated city that provided every want and need, for this was a utopia of this age, and all lived under their own free will. As technology and automation overtook the need for human slaves, they were outcast and left the metropolis of gods into their own means, leading the Nephilim to engorge themselves in pleasures of drink, sex, and barbaric violence as a means for entertainment. To fuel their tastes of pleasure, their customs became more depraved, and their incessant pride of their own godliness led them to rationalize their behavior. The humans possessed features from the Nephilim over these many generations, as their faces became more angular as well as losing the multitude of hair on their bodies. They were, however, still treated as lower beings. Many fell into ways of lust for power, learning the ways of the gods to cultivate abilities to manipulate matter and currents of energy. It was deemed within the hierarchy of social status that entitled the Nephilim to possess such abilities to their highest degree, and they would often show off their abilities by humiliating and harassing the impoverished humans. The humans brought their knowledge of farming and cultivation and proceeded to develop their own civilizations on the outskirts of the metropolis, fueling their own source of warfare by use of metal, with swords, spears, and arrows. This land was isolated amongst itself, and the humans across the world had no knowledge of these things until later generations, for they had not evolved as quickly as the descendants of Adam. It is fair to say they were not Nephilim, but wholly human in their own regard. Several of the humans worshipped the god Ra, as they knew of his defiance against Adam and his depravity, and so hoped that one day he might return and save them all, for they considered them the two forces of good and evil in the embodied physical form. They regarded Ra as being part of the sun, and that one day he would make the sun burn up the Nephilim. They exclusively wore clothing that was a shade of yellow or gold, and refused to ever leave their dwellings at night, for they considered the moon to be ruled by Adam and was abhorred by them as being the absolute evil of the world. Every new moon, however, they would host a ceremony at night to celebrate the symbolic death of Adam, to which they believed was when he was at his weakest state. There then was also a rival tribe to which worshipped Adam as the embodiment of creation, the goddess of life, and was stronger than Ra, and so should be sanctified as such. There came upon a day when the two sects had a great war amongst each other, and this resulted in significant losses on both sides. The followers of Ra became increasingly more extreme and began sacrificing their children and most powerful soldiers in the fires to appease Ra as a means to quicken his arrival, which never came. The cult of Adam began practicing acts of sexual depravity with one another, in the belief that to engage fully in the senses was to engage fully with the moon as experience of the eternal life waters.